Yeah, well, it's a World War One book, as you know, and it's sort of seen through the eye of this, yeah, Cyril Bagger, um, who's a not very good soldier. Um, the book actually centers on sort of the worst soldiers of the bunch. There's five of them, and they're in sort of the final, leading up to the final days of World War One, and miserable in the trenches as one would be. And him and four other not very good soldiers are picked to stay behind when the troops move to take care of, aka euthanize, a soldier who's been out there screaming in no man's land. They go out there to find the soldier, put him out of his misery, but it actually ends up being an angel that has been shot out of the sky by artillery, um, and has fallen in the barbed wire. And now they have to decide kind of what to do with the angel. Um, and it, in some ways, acts as the has a sort of the opposite of an angelic effect upon them. It sort of reveals everyone's true colors as they each one of them has a way that they want to use the angel that differs from the other. So it ends up sort of creating a more hellish type of situation. Well, the Bagger again is the sort of the protagonist, and he's a professional gambler, really, and he has carried that over into the war, using his sleight of hand and whatnot to get out of the most dangerous missions. And he stays behind, and whenever he can, and digs latrines and buries bodies, anything to stay out of the way of harm. And nobody likes him because of this. And he's convinced himself that's how he likes it, that being alone is the only way to be. Arno is the sort of one chink in that armor. He's a 14-year-old kid who lied about his age to get into the army, which happened all the time back then. And if there's an innocent in the book, or he's as close to that sort of archetype, um, and it's him really that Bagger comes to want to protect, which is so it's Bagger's route to possible redemption is through the kid. Goodspeed, a lot of these characters I came up with, um, in less than organic way. Typically, characters sort of rise up, but in this case, I really wanted all the soldiers to have a different reason to want to exploit the angel. So everyone has an angle, and I created the characters almost to serve the purpose of those angles in a way. Goodspeed has a financial angle on the angel, wants to essentially make money from it. There's a big brute named Popkin who has sort of a romantic or sexual angle on it. Um, and then there's Vec, who is from the only black regiment out there, who's been sort of grafted into the group, and he's feeling sort of betrayed by his country and sort of wants the angel to just blow it all up. So the kid Arno, he can't read, but the thing that has really glommed him onto Bagger is that he at some point got Bagger to read to him. And he likes adventure books, and a popular adventure series of the era was the Tarzan series. So they happen to have a copy of The Son of Tarzan, and he will get, if he nags Bagger enough, Bagger will read some from it. So it becomes this text that kind of represents a certain kind of valor, compared to the much more flawed and um, problematic valor that they're being asked to perform on the battlefield. And the Bible is something that um, Bagger carries with him in his haversack. So his father was a preacher, and the only thing, his father died actually in the Lusitania while coming across the ocean to administer to soldiers in the war. And the only thing he really has of his dad is this Bible, and he doesn't even really believe in the Bible, but he just finds himself dragging it around with him. So it sort of represents sort of um, who he really is versus who he thinks, or he tries to make himself believe he is. He wants to be this rogue, this man who doesn't care about anyone, but he's got this literal weight on his back that is telling him something different. There's one more major character, their commander, who has his own designs on the angel eventually. But all these divisions would have nicknames in the military, and they still do. Um, and so for the 43rd, which did not fight in World War One, so that part is fictionalized. I wanted to give them a cool name, like all of them. There's a certain kind of bird, the shrike, or known as the butcher birds, that impale their prey on spikes or thorns or sticks, and then kind of eat them at their leisure. And I like this idea that the commander, who's, if there's one truly sort of more evil antagonist, it's the commander. Um, that he would think this is a valiant name for his troops when really it's sort of a sadistic name and more correctly reflects him. He's sort of the opposite of the soldiers in a way. It's a nice contrast because they're the lowliest of the low. Like they all are considered are either poor soldiers or in the case of Vec, just considered lowly, even though he's a pretty good soldier. Um, and they have their own ways that they want to get out of the war alive. But I like the idea that they're the big antagonist is really somebody who has his eyes on a much broader, wider prize. Like he is kind of like these characters you're talking about, where he's had a lot of experience, but not a lot of it has been in direct combat, and he's mostly advanced uh, in a way that's more based on greed. Like he wants more stripes, he wants more honor, he wants more spectacle, he wants the right medals pinned on his jacket, and if he's had his druthers, he would do anything to make that happen. And so if you once he might be given something like the angel, which can do any number of miraculous things, it's actually quite dangerous to give a person like that much power. So in a sense, it's about power and the ways the limited amounts these soldiers, these grunts have compared to um, the power of um, a leader or by extension a power of an entire country might have. Well, I always do a lot of research, and once you start dealing with world wars, the research is kind of unending if you let it. So it's more of a process of curating that research and stopping yourself because you can get overwhelmed with it and find yourself down a rabbit hole that you can't escape from. It happens all the time. Um, so yeah, it was as accurate as I could make it, and I use as many specifics as possible, even when the average reader won't even know what I'm talking about. That's okay because the army and warfare is filled with jargon and acronyms and things that uh, the average person wouldn't understand, but you understand them as they have their own language, they have their own code. Um, it doesn't take too many memoirs about life in World War One or documentaries or whatever before you get a sense of the appalling brutality of it. And it's almost impossible to imagine any kind of bodily atrocity that didn't happen in World War One. And from there, once you have the sort of sense that a body can be blown apart in literally any way, it becomes just a matter of imagination um, and just being very thoughtful about the four senses or the five senses, sorry, and just concentrating on and always remembering like what does this taste like? What does this smell like? It's like just basic sort of childlike reminders, really. And I know there are people who do have to be very aware of that and sort of dodge certain things on certain days or whatever. That's not an issue for me, really. I think I do a pretty good job of containing the writing to the writing. Um, I work 6 days a week, 8-hour days here at my desk, but at the end, there's a long days, so I essentially put a cap on the end, and it doesn't affect my life too much. There are exceptions, of course, and there's definitely a sort of anticipatory feeling that I know from many books where there's a certain scene that's coming up, and you're sort of aware that okay, sometime next week I'm going to get to that scene, and it's going to be um, particularly intense, maybe. but it's nothing that I don't think affects me too much in my sort of life outside the document that I'm working on. It's and I guess I feel fortunate in that sense. I have some sort of built-in barrier where it doesn't um, affect my sleep. You know, like I'm able to draw a hard line when I need to.